What's up guys, Eber here with Canucks, and when you're out there looking to invest into a smartphone, there is quite a lot of research that needs to be done, especially if your budget is over $500. This year we've seen plenty of fantastic releases, but should you stop looking for one?
The Kraken X61 liquid cooler by NZXT features variable pump speed, 2 high static pressure 140mm fans, and beautiful user control through the CAM software. Click below to get Kraken.
Sony has announced a new device into the market, and it's this, the XPERIA X. Its price? $550. I have to give credit to Sony for the amazing build quality of the XPERIA X. The whole body is crafted in aluminum, the sides are strong and rigid, and every time I pick up this phone, I get a sense of using a premium device. The screen is curved a little bit towards the edges, and I just love holding it in one hand. The screen is a 5-inch 1080p display that is IPS. It was a weird transition for me personally coming from the Nexus 6P that houses a 5.7-inch display. I'm not going to complain about why Sony skipped the QHD mark. 1080p just looks great on the screen given the size. Viewing angles are excellent with great color reproduction. You won't have any trouble viewing the screen outdoors. The icing on top of this is the inclusion of dual front-facing speakers, and all of us consume content on smartphone these days, and what better way to enhance the audio experience? Let's take a listen. If you're an audio enthusiast, you'll love this as well. The built-in DAC sounds phenomenal. The audio output is balanced without any extra emphasis on bass or the high-end frequencies, and you won't have any trouble driving high-end headphones. There are a few settings within the phone. Personally, I wasn't able to differentiate between DSCE, HX, and Clear Audio Plus, but the ability to manually tweak EQ is always a welcome feature. And overall, if I were to describe the audio experience from the XPERIA X in 2 words, it's clean and awesome. The phone's memory can also be expanded via microSD, and that's located within the SIM card tray. It's a great way to store all your music and media. There's a fingerprint reader integrated into the power button on the right side of the phone. It worked fine for me, but what's really disappointing is that Sony decided to disable the fingerprint scanner for the US market, just like they did with the Z5 line. This alone is a deal-breaking feature to many customers who like the convenience of fingerprint sensors, plus the price is not a reflection of omitted features. Right below the power button is where you'll find the volume adjust buttons. They are clicky and the buttons don't shuffle, but the placement seems a bit odd. It's just an annoyance now to adjust volume, and Sony seriously needs to reconsider body design for the future. Next to volume adjust sits a camera shutter button. When half pressed, users can focus onto a subject, and when fully pressed, it captures the shot. This allows to steady the phone and have better focus control. Do note that shooting portrait, you're better off using the touchscreen buttons, but during landscape, it feels like an actual point-and-shoot camera. That, my friends, is taking smartphone photography to the next level. Only if the camera was good. You see, it's a 23 megapixel sensor with an f2.0 aperture, and while on paper that looks great, it's what I would call moderate. The volume buttons that I mentioned earlier acts as a zoom-in feature, but again, due to awkward placement so close to the shutter button, they are left unused. The pictures that you see here are taken on manual mode, which oddly enough only lets you to fiddle around with exposure and specific white balance presets, and judging by the results, the detail is present if you're taking pictures in daylight or any well-lit environment. But you won't be satisfied taking pictures in low light. Also, every time when I pointed the sensor into a bright light source, this weird green flare shows up. You won't find any raw shooting options, and even if you were shooting auto, sometimes the sensor misses the right exposure and it frequently shifts white balance. It's so unfortunate for Sony to mess up the camera, especially when compared to the 6P that uses a 12 megapixel Sony sensor that gives much more detail and dynamic range compared to the XPERIA X. A bit ironic. You can shoot 1080p video at 30 and 60 frames per second. From my tests, 60p looked more noisier than 30p, so I'd stick with that setting. But for a phone that costs more than $500, it's completely unacceptable to not feature 4K recording. Sony steady shot stabilization works well here without cropping in under the native resolution. Remember, it's digital, not optical, so let me know what you guys think about the quality of the footage. The phone runs the latest version of Android, in this case version 6.0.1 Marshmallow. Sony's custom skin on top looks really good actually. In fair, it's light without any unwanted bloatware, and with the help of Qualcomm's power-efficient Snapdragon 650 CPU and 3GB of RAM, apps open up very fast, memory management was excellent. You might notice occasional frame drops when gaming, but on the other hand, I never experienced any signs of overheating, and overall, I really like using this phone. Although specs-wise, for an Android device, seems underwhelming when 6GB of RAM and 800 series processor exists on cheaper phones. Battery life was really good on the Xperia X. I was able to average around 4.5 to 5 hours of screen on time, which from my perspective is awesome. There are two types of power saving features, stamina mode and ultra stamina mode. Stamina mode gets activated depending on the percentage setting you have enabled. In my case, 15% seemed reasonable. This disables animations, reduces brightness, and cuts down some background process. Now, when you enable the ultra stamina mode, the phone restructures the operating system in order for you to make calls, message, access music, and some other basic stuff. Data is completely disabled, plus you won't be able to access any other apps, and on top of that, the battery life gets extended significantly. I really appreciate this feature as this can come in very handy during low battery emergency situations. Okay, so what are my concluding thoughts on the Sony Xperia X? It's an okay phone with a few deal-breaking disadvantages, like the fingerprint reader not enabled for US customers, as well as the poor camera performance when compared to cheaper phones and price. The actual phone experience is great with nice size, good display, fantastic audio capabilities, and lasting battery. But we can't look at this product in a vacuum since the OnePlus 3 is a thing, the 6P, the Samsung Galaxy S6, and the LG G5 all have an upper hand over the Xperia X in one way or another. So what do you guys think about the Sony Xperia X? Is it worth $550? Let us know in the comments down below. I'm Iber with Hurricane X. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.